This episode on the Vom Seymour playlist is sponsored by Phytovite. Phytovite is a daily canine supplement, adding vitamins, organic trace minerals, probiotics, prebiotics, and digestive enzymes, all in easy-to-feed powders you can just mix into their meals. Learn more at drschoicesupplements.com, because your dog is more than a pet.
Welcome to the Vom Seymour podcast, your one-stop shop to versatile bird dog training. Welcome everyone to the episode where producer Travis and I will be detailing the Armbruster with guest Jim Halleran, who is the test coordinator for the 2025 Armbruster. Jim has judged and ran several dogs at previous Armbrusters, so looking forward to hearing from him and his insights on the 2025 Armbruster.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
All right, Joe, before we start asking Jim our questions, tell us a little bit about the history of the Armbruster and the VDD.
The first Armbruster was in 2002, and it was held in Aberdeen, South Dakota. And I've been doing some research the last couple of days to try to figure out how many dogs were in the 2002 Armbruster, and I heard 25. And just recently, I had one of the guys text me that I was asking the question. He said he heard there was like 10. So I don't know. I'm actually going to be working on putting an article together about the history of the Armbruster and putting it together for every single test that's ran. And this year's event was the 23rd annual Armbruster. But it's come a long ways. Typical Armbruster nowadays are probably going to be somewhere between 40 and 60 dogs, just depending on the location and the time of year. So, Jim, do you have anything to add to that?
No, other than I was trying to come up with some with some facts myself, but the research that I did come up with very little, because there's very little out there to be had, except for a few Facebook posts over the years that have alluded to the early years of the Armbruster. But as far as information about the early years of the Armbruster, it's kind of limited. So it's kind of interesting that you're going to be putting together an Armbruster collection to maybe give us some more information for those in the future that can look back on the Armbruster and find that information.
Joe, tell us how someone qualifies to participate in an Armbruster event.
So you have to have a certain score in the VJP, which is a score of 65. And with that in mind, they also have to have, a good in a coat, and they have to have hip x-rays, OCD x-rays, and elbow x-rays, but the elbows are optional. And so if their hips and elbows and OCD are good, that's one of the first things they have to do in order to qualify for the Armbruster.
And new to this year, the new requirement to enter the breed show is you have to have a blood draw also on file.
Jim, where can people go online to learn more about the Armbruster?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the things I've kind of wanted to talk about a little bit with you guys. So this was actually one of the things that became a problem this year, and I think it's been a problem in the past also. One of the things that we really don't do a very good job of is getting the Armbruster information out there. Now, at the VJP, when you finish your VJP and you score a qualifying score of 65, the test director should be giving you some information, a pamphlet that directs you towards the things that you need to do going into the Armbruster. From your X-rays to your blood draw to getting yourself entered through the website, paying and all that stuff. But as far as the GNA website, it's especially for people like me. I am not computer savvy, and I can navigate a website, but the information for the Armbruster is very hard to find on our website, and that's one of the things I brought to the attention of of our executive committee that we need to do a better job at, because like I said, we lost about a half a dozen dogs this year just because they missed timelines. Because there are things that you have to get done by a certain time, or else you just don't get them back in time for your entry. So obviously, Facebook, social media, we really blasted social media with trying to get that information out there. Unfortunately, like I said before, I'm not computer savvy, and we do have people that still are not as involved with the electronics as some of our younger and more electronically inclined folks. But that's basically where you're going to get your information, is from either the Facebook page or our website, and then that pamphlet that you get from your test director at your VJP. In the event that you have issues, your contact through your breeder, your contact through your chapter chairman or your chapter breed warden, those are places that you can always look for information. But yeah, the places to get information for the armed rooster are limited.
I would call people. I'd call you and whoever else. And yeah, it was hard for the average guy that hasn't done it a lot might struggle to get that information. At least I'm never afraid to call somebody, and that's what I'm going to tell people: is don't be afraid to get on the phone and give some of the guys a call that have been doing this for a long time, and they can help you through it.
For sure. Even the process of filling out the form blats and all that stuff is, and I would say 3 or 4 people call me as just because they knew I was chairing it or coordinating it, and new to the process, and they're like, man, I have no clue what I'm doing here. And that is a struggle for people, because it is confusing, and if you don't get that application just right, it's incorrect and it'll be kicked out. So like I said, we need to do a better job. And I think as Heartland chapter chairman, I'm going to be going into the annual meeting this year with some discussions on how we can improve that.
Yep.
So what am I searching for? So if I go to Google to do a search, what am I searching for?
We created an actual 2025 Armed Rooster Facebook page. And then we tried to, link all of our Drahthaar pages to that, and then of course tried to Facebook blast everything, and you still get missed people, but we did our best to get it out to the masses.
We'll add links to those Facebook pages in the show notes, so listeners, check it out. You'll know exactly where to go. Joe, talk a little bit more about the qualifying event, the VJP.
So they have to track a rabbit and point a bird and run the field, and that's the test.
You have to have a VJP score of 65 to be invited to the Armed Rooster.
So anyone listening to this right now that's interested in getting into those tests, check out the show notes and go visit the Facebook page, call and talk with one of the people in the show notes. The contact information is there, and get moving in that direction and make sure you're training your dogs right.
Yep. Correct. Yeah, it's pretty important. You got to prepare for it. I mean, the VJP is basically a natural ability test. So there doesn't have to be a whole ton of actual training for the VJP, but there has to be some exposure. The dog has to be exposed to birds and exposed to tracking rabbits, but it doesn't have to be force broke. It doesn't have to be wool broke. It's just got to be exposed and handle for you, and not just run off and say, "See you later, buddy."
Joe, what gets in the way of identifying talent in a dog?
Maybe the guy just didn't have the right training done. He didn't have the dog force fetched properly. He didn't have the dog wool posted. Maybe he didn't, get him in and do the things that he needs to do with that dog to make him ready for the test.
Your biggest hurdle with the HCP is your retrieves. The HCP is basically a retrieving test. And like Joe said, that makes or break the dog, whether the dog has his retrieving trained correctly.
Jim, tell me more about the VDD.
VDD is our parent organization, Verein Deutsche Drahthaar, in Germany, and then we are a subsidiary of that called Group North America. But then our group is broke down into chapters, which is different from Germany.
Joe, what's the Armbruster's goal? What's it all for?
We're trying to get these dogs to these certain levels because we want a great hunting dog, not because we want to show off and think that it's some great dog. Because we're all after a great hunting dog. We want a dog that's going to go out and point, going to go out and retrieve. It's when I tell them fetch at the edge of a water, it's going to go across the body of water at 50 or 100 yards and go find that duck that we just shot. Maybe we're having problems trying to get it. So it's all about trying to recover game and hunting.
Jim, how do you and your dogs prepare for competitions?
So obviously, I'm sure Joe will agree with me. The preparation for VJP starts the instant you bring that puppy home. There's a lot of things that you can do obedience wise, to just to make the dog easier to handle in the VJP, and then as the hunting season, or it kind of depends on when you get the dog, but most of them dogs they will be going through their first hunting season prior to their VJP. At least I hope they do. For me, I know that taking my dogs out west really turns them on as far as the pointing and the field search. And then once I kind of get through my hunting season without any pressure on the dog at all, I start doing drags as a puppy, early on as a puppy. That's just the way that I do it. My dogs are on drags from day one, pretty much.
Yeah, the reason for that is to get their nose rolling, correct?
That's right. That's right. And just developing, using your cue word and developing that habit of when you give them that cue word, that they put their nose on the ground and they track whatever I tell them to track. So then going back to what I said earlier about the mid-December, when all the foliage is off of in the woods and everything, and hunt season is starting to wrap up, that's when I start putting them on live rabbits. And I'm fortunate I've got a pretty nice rabbit area to where I can get multiple rabbits on a puppy. I put them on a long line, and I just let them pull me through the weeds until we jump a rabbit, and let him loose and let him chase it. Give him a few sight chases and let him really, really roll. And them rabbits get gone pretty quick, and then they start to have to use their nose. And you get 2 or 3 of those live chases, and then I start having somebody jump the rabbit for me, bring the dog up. I do a little bit differently, where I lay the dog down on the rabbit track, let them get their nose sent up, and turn them loose. And then it's just repetition then. And I do that all the way through, till the VJP season, end of February, early March. I do a little bit of bird work just to staunch them up, maybe with a pigeon launcher, but I really don't overdo it on the bird work on a VJP, because we're not looking for a high standard of pointing. It is nice to see, and a lot of times if you don't pressure them into them birds a whole lot, you'll have a dog that's really staunch, especially on test day. And these draught hearts do not take overtraining well, and when you overdo it, they get real bored, and they finally give you the finger after a while.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the truth. Just keep it fun. That's
Yep.
what I'd say is keep it
Yep,
fun
yep.
for the dogs.
And really, and I say this all the time, and really, and in fact, I told Joe this a while ago. These dogs come out of the womb, pre-programmed to do this stuff. And if you just go hunt your dog's going to do fine in these tests. Unless you really, really, really screw something up, these dogs have it in them their innate ability to track and point right out of the box is phenomenal.
It's a really good point. I want to add to that is the fact that so I've been judging about 15 years, and when a dog comes to the test and it runs in the field and is going to do a field search, you can tell the dogs that have been hunted on wild birds versus
100%.
the dog that's just been running around the field like, hey, what's going on, dude? And to me, it's a different dog. The dogs that have been
100%.
hunted you can just see their nose down, they're going, they're looking for something.
100%.
Yeah, so you got to hunt the dogs. That's
Yep.
important.
Yep.
All right, so we've succeeded in the VJP. We've scored a high score, so we can move on to the Armbruster. So what is next? What do I do next?
Now, especially if you have a late VJP, you really got to start getting on the ball to get things done. The earlier you can get that VJP up and out of the way, get qualified, the better, because depending on your program, at least how my program that I do, as soon as the VJP is done, we go hard into the trained retrieve, force fetch for those, and I get that. I'm hammering on that until it's done, and usually I'm wrapping that up, mid-May, early June, depending on the dog and when I got my VJP done. Sprinkling in, obviously, some drag work in there. One of the things that going back to, earlier in the fall, I do set some live ducks loose for my puppies, just to get them amped up about the water. But then once the HCP training comes around, they're getting regular ducks in the water. And then pretty much all summer long, I'm working blind retrieves all summer long.
What documents are required for the main event?
The biggest thing, and I think the hardest thing for a lot of guys to get done, and you really have to get on this early, is getting the pre-qual paperwork done. I know there were some folks this year that had contacted me and said, man, they had a hard time finding a location to get the coat and confirmation pre-qualification done, because we are limited on our breed show judges. Here in the Heartland, we're fortunate we have quite a few of them in our chapter. So in the Midwest, it's not as big deal, but you get somebody. In fact, one of our participants this year at the Arm Rooster flew in from Alaska, and he actually had to get in a plane and fly his dog to the lower 48 just to get a pre-qual done. So, there are limiting factors that cause issues for guys that are trying to register for the Arm Rooster. So I would say the pre-qual paperwork is paramount, because it takes a little while to coordinate that with all the people that have to be involved. Obviously, the form blat, that's paperwork that you have to fill out for any HCP. And then your blood work, you have to find a qualified veterinarian to pull blood, fill out that paperwork. And then as soon as you can get your x-rays done, the sooner the better, because there is a timeline there to get them back from Germany. And then you also have to have your HN done. And I believe that you have to have that HN done by July 1st.
I think this year we had a little more time than that, but I think they give us a little more than July this year, because the Arm Rooster was a little bit later.
Yep.
Where can people get guidance towards getting into an event?
Your puppy breeder is a good source of information. Most of them do a very good job of keeping you informed on when, where, and how to do things. You could also call the Arm Rooster test director. You can also call a very good person for information, especially on anything dealing with the breed show, is our breed warden, Mike Fortner. Is a very good contact. And then any of our executive committee, they would be more than happy to help you and direct you into the places that you need to be to get that information.
So personally, if I'm going to take a dog to the Arm Rooster, I'm more than likely going to get the hips x-rayed at 12 months of age. I don't like to wait 13, 14, because the 12 months is a cutoff. And so one of the reasons I like to do it at 12 months is, first of all, I can find out if my dog has A hips and is going to qualify on that end. And that'll help us to figure out if we need to continue with getting ready for the Arm Rooster. So, and the other reason is, let's say a dog has an injury at 13 months and it messed up its hips, but at 12 months it was perfect. So I personally always like to get the dogs done, as far as their x-rays done, at that 12 months, give or take a week or two, just to avoid some of those issues. And like I said, it tells you where we're at as far as if we can move forward with this dog to take it to the test.
Good point.
So,
good point. Yep, good point. And you can, and just for another piece of information about the hip x-rays, you are qualified if your dog has, obviously, HDA, but you also are qualified to run at this time if you have a dog that has HDB hips also. Once you get into HDC, you are no longer qualified to run in the arm booster. Same thing with OCD. If you're OCD positive or ED positive, you are not qualified to run in the arm booster. And your dog is actually eliminated from the breeding program.
But you can run that dog through an HZP.
You can still run it through the HZP. Yep. You're just not qualified for the arm booster or the breed show.
And I'm going to recommend that everybody runs their dog through the HZP because it forces you as a handler to train that dog and get that dog to the next level. So now we go out hunting this fall, and this dog, oh, it's force broke. It stands its birds. It does all the things that we want it to do because we train for this event.
Correct.
Raise the bar.
Yep. Absolutely.
Joe, tell us what to do and not to do before an event.
Obviously, sports fetch. I mean, that's number one as far as taking it to the event. As far as don'ts, okay, so don't give your dog a bath. Don't strip it down to nothing because we have a breed show at the arm rooster. So a bath maybe 3-4 months prior if you want to, but not 2 months ahead. And don't take a stripping comb and strip it down to nothing. If you want to strip that dog down, strip it down 2 months ahead of time, and then pull out all the dead hair. Jim, do you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, same thing. Big emphasis on getting the force fetch completely done. And I want to make sure I emphasize completely done. Joe and I had a conversation about this. You know, one of the things with force fetches is and these dogs are super smart. I mean, there's nothing that these dogs cannot do. And one of the things that they do like to do is they like to they'll do anything to get out of work, and they figure out real quick what they have to do to not have to work. And this is one of the fallacies that I see with a lot of people's force fetch programs is that the dog starts to reach for the bumper. You know, they put it on the ground, the dog runs out there and picks it up, and they automatically assume the dog is completely done with his force fetch. That is absolutely the beginning of force fetch. Force fetch is using your force to get them to reach out to take the bumper or whatever you're using for a fetching device, all the way until you're forcing them across the water on the blind retrieve. There's so much to that force fetch that a lot of people miss. And as Joe will attest, as both of us being judges and watching over the years of the dogs that you could tell that were completely force fetch and the dogs that had some holes in their force fetching program, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Yeah. And really with the HCP, the arm booster, or the HCP, basically it's just a VGP with retrieves, in my opinion. And if you got the retrieve down, you will be successful at the HCP.
And if you ever need help, don't be afraid to check out. I have all the training videos on
Correct.
My website, bombseymourkennel.com, or reach out to a buddy that's done it a bunch of times or whatever. But to add to that, I think the most important thing that people are missing, to me, this is the key, is if you do walk and fetch. And if you have the dog force broke and then force broke with the e-collar, so in other words, e-fetch, and you do walk and fetch, and you do it consistently and do it correctly, you're going to have a dog that's going to retrieve for you. And one other thing I'll add to it is, before I take a dog to an HCP or an arm rooster or a VGP, I'm going to find at least 10 bodies of water. At least give that dog 10 different looks. Don't give him 2 looks. Oh, my dog is doing good across the water. Give him at least 10. I actually probably find 20 different looks. I give him 20 different looks, anywhere from 30 to 75 to 100 yards. And change the distance, change the location. You can do the same pond, change it, run them from one side to the other side, so they're looking at something different when you send them across. So, I mean, I think that's pretty important.
100%. I was thinking about that after we talked there. You know, I've got 5. I've got five bodies of water that I call my progression. So I have, you know, my first water that when I first start forcing across, you know, is 15 yards across. And, you know, it's deep enough that most all dogs have to swim across, but I can wade across it. So, when I go to that first body of water, it's what I call my puppy water. And until I'm successful, I've got my bucket across, I got my bumpers across. And there's sometimes where I have to walk that dog back across that water because he's just hesitant to go across. But, a time or two of that, and I've got a dog going across there pretty regularly. Then I go to my next body of water, and it's a little bit bigger. And then my next water is a little bit bigger until I go to my big water that's 100 yards across. And then the same thing, I go back whenever I get that all done with my bucket all the way across. Then I go back to my puppy water, and then I use no bucket. And then I work that back up through all those bodies of water with no bucket. And by the time I'm at my big water, I've got a dog that's jumping in that water and walking across the water to get to that other side. And that's, one of the things that I think is something that folks can take away from this podcast is with these HDPs. One of the biggest things that you need to do is get your dog into as many locations as possible, whether it's going to training days across state lines, going hunting across state lines, different bodies of water. Get your dog exposed to as many different scenarios as possible, because you'd be surprised, once again, as a judge, how many times I see a dog falter and the guy said, dog's never done this before. And I said, well, a lot of times it has to do because you didn't expose them to everything you could possibly expose.
I'd like to add one small thing to that. And one thing that I do personally is I like to get retrieving done on land before I get totally crazy about water. So I'll have my training dogs going up to 250 and 300 yards on land.
Correct.
Straight line to a retrieve and coming back. And I'll also add heavy objects and big objects. I'll make them pick up a big goose, a 7 to 9 pound dumbbell. So I'll add all these different things in there so they're picking things up that are at long distances. And so when you do long distances, I'll say if I can get them to do 200 yards on land, I could probably get them to do 100 yards on the water. So I like to double the land, and then usually you can cut that in half for how far you're going to get them to go across the water. So at least that's my theory on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Jim, one question for you. What should participants bring to the Armbruster or HCP? What should they bring along with them?
Well, number one, I would think they need to bring their dog. That would be
a good one.
Important. No, I'm a minimalist. I'll be 100% honest with you there. I'm not a big crazy, got to have all the stuff. Obviously a lead, Jaeger lead, whatever your lead is to get your dog to and from the line. And then I tell you what I do a little bit differently than some folks. Maybe other people have seen me do this, and I got some people who have used this. So one of the things that I do, I use a slip lead. And one of the things that I carry with me is I go to the hardware store and I get me a 3-inch stainless steel ring. And what I do with that when I'm doing my drags is I put that on the flat collar, so that instead of having the ring on the collar laying flat on the dog's neck, this ring actually sits above the dog's perpendicular to the dog's collar. So when I put my slip lead through that, there's no hanging at all in that, so that when I take the dog to the line, I lay the dog down on the drag, and I give him my cue word. He goes on down the track, and then I let my left hand go, and there's no popping, there's no hanging of that rope. It just slips right out. The dog just goes right on. That's one of the things that I do carry with me. Besides the slip lead, other than that, I don't know what else that I would have to have.
I would add Onentopple. You want to bring the Onentopple.
Sure. Rabies vaccination records.
Yep. Water bottle.
Sure.
I think it's a good idea to have a water bottle, and then probably your training vest.
Yep. For sure.
So, typically, what do you think of the ground? What do we look at for a field search? What would it look like in that field where we're going to search?
As far as the field itself, Joe? Yeah. So one of the things, I'm glad you brought this up, because this was something that really weighed heavily on me as far as when I took on the job of being test coordinator for the arm rooster, the 23rd arm rooster, one of the things that I made absolutely sure of is that my grounds were exactly the same for every testing group. There is a ranking of the dogs, and one of the most important things is that everybody's field is exactly the same. So what I looked for whenever I was looking for my fields was a field that had adequate amount of room to run a 20 25 minute field search with, I would say, shin high to knee high cover so that the judges could see the dog at all times. But I also wanted some structure in the field also, so the dog could show itself, could show that it was objective driven. And then the other thing that I find very important is to see how the dog responds to it is a change in cover height. So not so much cover that is over your head, but definitely higher than the majority of the field, so that you see a dog that checks up and comes back a little bit and starts to work a little bit closer to his handler. And then as you exit out of that higher cover, the dog starts to expand back out because the cover's lighter, and he can stay more in contact with his handler as he moves on. So that's what I'm looking for in the field.
I agree. Hey, Jim, I want to ask you, do the judges usually explain the scores?
They should. We do have open judging at our events, and I do feel like it's very important as the day goes on for the judges to at least give kind of a play-by-play as far as how the dogs are doing, for a couple reasons. Number one, it kind of, for me anyway, as a handler, when I'm handling a dog and a judge does this, it gives me kind of an idea where I sit with the judges. If my dog is doing what they feel is appropriate work, and if I need to change something midstream during the test. But it also gives the handler a vote of confidence too. Hey, my dog's doing well. I can calm down now. I can relax a little bit, and I think that helps the handler out a lot.
And they really got serious about doing this just probably, about 7-8 years ago, maybe,
Yeah.
the open judging?
Yeah.
So, but that's great.
Jim, can the public come and watch a Maine arm rooster event? Is it open to an audience?
Absolutely. Sometimes it's a little rough to be able to, depending on the circumstances with the field or the water, viewing might not be easily done just because of the situation of where the field or the water or the drags are at. But oh man, absolutely. The more people, and that was one of the things that I really tried to get people to do at the arm rooster at Sparta. We had a lot of people that, I advertised it a lot in Southern Illinois, and had a lot of people that wanted to show up and see what we were all about. And we did. We had quite a few people that showed up just out of the community to kind of see our event. And I love it when new faces come, because you'd be surprised how many people all of a sudden think, man, I want one of them. Them are cool.
Jim, tell us about the next Arm Rooster Maine event.
Great Lakes chapter is the chapter that's going to host it this next year. It's the first year they've hosted it in quite a long time. They got a good crew of folks. I think Scott Lover is the coordinator of it, and he's doing one heck of a job of putting things together. I think they're going to have it up in upper UP, I believe.
Stalwart, Michigan.
Yep. And so
December 16th through the 19th.
Yep. Sounds like they got a good crew working on it. Sounds like, I imagine they'll probably have something out here this spring. I'm trying to think of the fellow's name, Lyndon Roller. He's a pretty good, he really keeps people informed with how things are going in his chapter, and I think he'll do a good job of letting everybody know all things 24 arm rooster.
Yeah, and from what I understand, the whole test is going to be on private land, so that's going to be good. And the banquet and all the events will take place at a casino, so that's going to be fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I think the way Scott talked, there could be some opportunities for some pretty cool hunting opportunity there too, grouse and ducks and stuff.
Yep. It's real close.
That's always a bonus. That's always a bonus.
Yeah, it's close to the Canadian border, so there's going to be a lot of rough grouse up there. It'll be
nice.
fun.
Jim, before we wrap this up, is there anything else you want to talk about?
I just wanted to thank everybody that came to the 23rd Arm Rooster there in Sparta. I really, really worked hard to hopefully, have everybody leave there with a smile on their face. And regardless of the outcome of their test, that was one of the things that I felt was important, that, guys that come in and bring a dog to the Arm Rooster, it's not a cheap endeavor, and there's a lot of guys that want to come, and it's just, as far as what it costs to get there, from the x-rays to the travel to the time off work, to what it costs to enter it, you're talking thousands of dollars to do this. And so one of the things that I wanted to make sure of is that they got return on investment. I wanted to, no matter what, when they left there, they thought, man, that was worth the money I spent. That was worth the time off of work, because I had fun. Like I said, regardless of what their outcome of their test was, I still wanted them to make sure that they left happy.
Joe, anything else to add?
Nope. I just I was going to say that I've probably been to all the Arm Roosters, but probably 6. So I just get a kick out of seeing all my friends there, and people I've made friends with, and fellow judges. And I got to say, most of the test directors and coordinators have done a real great job over the years, and it's always a fun event. And normally try to figure out how you get a hunting trip involved with the Arm Rooster, and it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Right. Yep. Fun. It's a fun event. Everybody should come. Regardless of whether you're running a dog or not, that you should come just for the social event.
All right, Jim. Thanks for joining Joe and me.
Thank you. Had a good time.
Right. Thanks for listening, and go check out Joe's training service at VomSeymourKennel.com. This episode on the Vom Seymour playlist is sponsored by PhytoVite. PhytoVite is a daily canine supplement, adding vitamins, organic trace minerals, probiotics, prebiotics, and digestive enzymes, all in easy-to-feed powders you can just mix into their meals. Learn more at drschoicesupplements.com. See more and get more with PhytoVite.